Welcome back, guys. This is the 8th video tutorial of J2EE, and the previous discussion we have installed the database, which is MySQL. So you can choose any database like Oracle or DB, or PostgreSQL, or any DB you can choose at your choice, and you can install in your machine. So for the installation of MySQL, I have shown in the previous video. So each database will have one server. So as we install one server, it will have and one client. So server is the one which is actually holding data. So data will be there in your server. And the client is actually used for accessing the data from the server. So in our case, what is the server? MySQL server is the server which we installed, and the client is the one which is the workbench, MySQL workbench, which is called as our client here. So these are each database will have one server software and one client software. Server software actually contains the data, and the client software will actually contains which actually retrieves the data from a server. So it actually do operations like accessing the data or modifying the data or deleting some data within the server. So these are all the operations we can do it in client. So client also can be we have MySQL workbench, which is GUI, and we have one more thing called as command line oriented. So these actually GUI. So this has the graphical user interface, and the other one we have is like command line interface, which is called as CLI. It's not mandate like all the databases will provide both the clients. A few databases will have only command line interface, and a few of them they are providing the GUI, which is like similar to Workbench. And there are some other open source softwares also available, so that you can able to download them and you can connect to the any database. So different ways of clients will be available in the market, like different client also you can use it to connect to MySQL. But I recommend you to install the respective client. Suppose for MySQL, I just installed MySQL Workbench because it has the similar and the more specific database related features. So that is the reason I'm just recommending installing related client software will be sufficient. So finally, we have a database which is MySQL, and MySQL is having server software and client software. Client software we will be using MySQL Workbench, which is GUI. We are not using this command line because the command line you cannot see all the results properly. The command line will look like this. So you can run all the SQL queries over here. So but visually it won't appear like how the GUI is looking like. Suppose if you see here, it was not showing any list of databases and all. But if you see the workbench, it is actually having more UI related things, and user can easily understand that. And it's good to have one client software for developer to understand better and to make the development fast. Let's go through the topic. So we have a server software and we have a client software, and what is the language to communicate with these two actually? That's a question, right? So what is the language we need? Like if there are two people are there is some specific language we have to speak, either English or Hindi or any language. French or Chinese, any language they you choose to use it to communicate any two people. Likewise, we need a language to communicate the server and the client. This language is called as SQL, which is structured query language. Let me structured query language. So structured query language is the one which is used to communicate between clients and server. So what is a structured query language? How it actually looks like? Structured query language is a popular in database industry. All the databases will use the structured query language, which uses to do any operations on data within the server. Suppose if you want to create a table like this, if you want to create a table and if you want to keep the data, so there is a command for creating a table. And if you want to table with some specific columns, so number of columns you can define, and later also if you want you can modify and you can add additional columns also. So for doing all these, creating table and adding data or modifying data or deleting data, these are all possible with structured query language. So in industry people will call as CRUD operations, which is create, read, update, so delete. So people will call as CRUD. They'll take all the characters and all of them. They'll take first character, then they'll call it as CRUD operations. So it means CRUD means it's a create, read, update, and delete. So if you want to create any table in a database, then you can use create command, and which is called as SQL language. We can call it as create SQL query. Then read will be having read query, and update will have update query, and delete will have a delete query. So read actually do is it actually reads the data from the database within the table, or combines of join of tables. So it can read multiple tables also at a time. And update will do modifying a data within any table. Delete will work for deleting a data within any table. So these about the major operations performed within a database. Let's go and see what the next steps we have to do to perform all these operations, how actually the architecture looks like, and we can see it right now. Suppose let me name this table as EMP. So I'll be giving EMP number, name, and salary. So these are all the three major columns are available within EMP table, and now our intention is to create a EMP table where it have EMP number and name and salary. So these are all the three properties it is having, properties or columns you can say. So these called as columns, ENO, name and salary, and what are the records we'll be inserting. Suppose if we have an employee like 1 James, salary will be 20,000. So this record is called as a row. So each table will have rows and columns. So columns are ENO, name and salary are called as columns, and rows will be each record within a table is called as rows. So columns will be in vertical manner and rows will be in horizontal manner. So there's how we have to remember. Let's go and create our own table uh, and see how to perform these operations, CRUD operations within a database, and to make our J2EE top concepts to be completed. So we need these operations as a minimum so that we can do all other operations. So for that, first we have to suppose if you have a database like MySQL. Suppose this is your database. So this is actually your MySQL server software. Suppose if you want to create a table, the first step you have to do is you have to create a database object within this. Each SQL server will have n number of databases. Suppose you can call it as DB1, DB2, DB3. So you can call it, you can have each MySQL server will have n number of databases and each database will have n number of tables. Let me check if we have any other better signature for table. So for DB1, it's having set of tables. As also DB2 is having set of tables. So these called as I'm getting white lines. These called as a database. So I can give any name. Suppose if my product is like employees, I'll give EMPDB. You can give any name. All you can give DB1 also. Any name you can give it over there. And all the records within this, all the data, whatever we have structures we have within the database is called as tables. So now we have the better picture, right? So now we have an SQL server, any database server. Within any database server, we'll be having set of DBs. You can call it with any name. I just name it as employee DB, and each database will have a set of tables. So each table will have a set of separate name for that. If you want, you can put this one as EMP as in our example. This one you can put it as product, or any name you can put for each table. So these table 3, table 2 or 3. So any name you can put it for each uh, table. So likewise, we have the better picture right now. So one server and multiple databases. Within a database, we'll be having multiple tables. Within a table, we have multiple rows. Rows are like 1 James to the 20,000 whatever we gave. Likewise, we'll be having multiple rows within a database tables. Uh, so now we have a server ready, and we have a DB ready, and now we need a client which actually communicates with this database server, which is, in our case, it is called as MySQL workbench. Let me have client over here. Let me make it a bit small so that we can put all the text. So these my MySQL workbench. So these my workbench, which actually uses to communicate with a database. So either way, if it requires to get the data, so it actually the communication will be both the ends. It's not like one way. It actually gives some commands to database saying perform these operations, or it actually do get a data from database. Like for read operations, it actually fetch data from database. So the flow will be bidirectional. So both the ways it actually communicates. So what is the communication language we have here? It's a SQL. So SQL is a programming language, or for communicating with databases. So these are the database architecture will look like. Now we have all the components are covered here. So MySQL Workbench is the one which is actually used as a client, which actually uses SQL query language to communicate with the databases. And the Workbench, through the client, you can able to create databases, tables, or you can able to insert queries and all. So all these operations will be performed through the client. The client will be having Workbench is a GUI, and the other one will be having command line interface. So either of one we can use it for performing operations. So let's go and do all the operations, so we can perform the operations in next tutorial. Thanks guys.